Good morning or good afternoon, boys. It's Mr. Bell here, and it's nice to see you. As you can see, I'm back in the music classroom, which is really nice, and it's great to be back at school. It's a bit weird, it's a bit strange though without you, but it's lovely to have my piano again, which I've missed a bit. I hope you've had a good time at home. And you've been doing some really good things, really smart things like reading and doing puzzles and playing outside if you can. I had a chat to the boys that have come back to school, and they've had lots of fun at home, but they're quite happy to be back at school, but they're missing some of their friends who I haven't come back. So, for example, year 2 and 3, there's not a whole lot of boys here, but we're getting them to do activities. And for music today, I'd like to sing some songs as usual, which is important. It's good to keep the singing up. And we're going to be talking about the orchestra and maybe doing some clapping activities. So we're going to start with, I've been working on the railroad. You might have forgotten the words. So what I'll do is I'll move the computer to where you can see the words, and then we'll sing, I've been working on the railroad. You hear the whistle blowing, rise up so early in the morning. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Dinah, blow your horn. Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow? Dinah, won't you blow your horn? Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah. Someone's in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with Dinah, strumming on the old banjo. Fee-fi, fiddly-I-O. Fee-fi, fiddly-I-O. Fee-fi, fiddly-I-O. Strumming on the old banjo. Okay, so hopefully you were singing along to that song, which I used to sing when I was a boy at Victoria Ave. I'm just going to get something out of my cupboard over here. Now you know that sometimes I give you a percussion instrument to use for music. And I wonder if you know, I'll just turn it this way. I wonder if you remember what this is called. This thing here has those grooves all along, and it makes this sound. If I use, see, I'm actually not using this end. I'm actually going to use the bottom end of this to scrape. Because I don't know if you remember, but the percussion in that video I sent last week about George Meets the Orchestra, he met a boy who talked about how percussion instruments can hit, shake, or scrape. And this is a scrape. It doesn't mean that all instruments can be shaken, hit and scraped. It means that most instruments can just do one of those things. Some instruments like this, you can shake it and you can scrape it. It's not really for hitting. Whereas a tambourine wonder what if you can think about what two things you can do with a tambourine. And I'll just quickly go and get one. Okay, so here's one type of tambourine. This is called a rock tambourine because it's not a full circle and it doesn't have a skin on it. Okay, so that's a different type of tambourine. It's got a skin on it. But this can do two things, and I wonder if you got it right. You can hit them, usually with your hand, like that, and you can shake them. But I can't scrape it. That's not what it's for. So, what about this one? What's this called? Well, if you thought or said castanets, you're right. Usually you have one in each hand. I've just got one at the moment. And it's just two pieces of wood that are tied together with this rubber band here. And it makes quite a nice rhythm for dancing. And this is, you hear castanets in Spanish music quite often. I'm wondering if you can try clapping some rhythms. Okay, so I'm just going to use a flat clap, just like this. You could do it there or there, and try and copy after me. So here we go. Here's a short rhythm for you to clap. Okay, we'll try it again. You try that. Okay, I can't hear what you did, so I can't really comment on it. Usually I'd get a volunteer to clap that in front of the class. Try this one now. Now that one is actually a rhythm from the song we just did. Listen again. Do you know which line of the song that rhythm is? Well, it's actually the rhythm of fee, fi, fiddly-I-O, fee, fi, fiddly-I-O, fee, fi, fiddly-I-O. That was that rhythm, wasn't it? Okay, well, we're going to do something else now. I'm going to have a look at this instrument. Hopefully you remember what this is, because one of our main things that we do in music at King's is strings, and this is a violin. And some lucky boys have a violin at home, and some of you have a cello, and that's great if you do. And I've sent some notes home for you to practice. Crossing Strings is one of the songs that we were doing, pizzicato. I'm just going to remind us some of the basics of what we learned in Term 1. Okay? Remember the parts of the instrument: the body, the fingerboard, the strings, the bridge, the tailpiece, the chin rest, the back, the tuning pegs, and the scroll. Do you remember what the strings are called? The lowest string on a violin is G. Remember, get A. G, D, A, E. So crossing strings, we plucked G 7 times, G, 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 then D 7 times, D, 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 D. Actually, I think we started on D and I got that wrong. But the most important thing is to remember where I can put my thumb on the edge of the fingerboard and then use my hook finger to pluck the string. Okay, I'm just going to get a cello. And remember the names of these strings. The lowest string on a cello is C. Charlie's granddad drives to Auckland. G, C, G, D, A. Charlie's granddad drives to Auckland. And remember, we pluck about here, not too close to the bridge. So the next thing that we usually look at in term 2 is the bow. And we haven't really started using the bow unless you've had private lessons. And I'll just talk a little bit about the bow. Because we don't want to get too far behind in our schedule. So this is a bow. It's not a stick, it's a bow, B-O-W. And the same spelling as like that kind of bow. But it's not a weapon, and it's a fragile part of the violin and cello. But it's very important. It's made of wood and horsehair, which comes from the tail of the horse. And some very clever person realized that if you drew horsehair across a string, it makes a beautiful sound. It makes the string vibrate very quickly in a really smooth way. And the main thing about the bow, first of all, is you don't touch the hair. You're allowed to touch the wood, but not the hair, because if you do, you get the rosin on your fingers and it comes off the bow, it comes off the horsehair, which means it won't stick. It actually needs something called rosin that is like tree gum, and we rub it on the horsehair to make it stick to the string. So we don't put our fingers on it, and holding the violin, holding the bow, is like that. But it's a bit hard for me to teach you how to do that when you don't have an instrument at home. But anyway, that's just a little bit about this next part of the instrument that we will be doing when you come back to school. So I'll just play a tune that you know with the bow. And it's a bit strange for me to play this because this is a small violin designed for little people. In other words, children. This is too small for my big thick fingers to fit on properly. Anyway, I just wanted you not to forget about your strings, because that's what we'll be doing when you come back. Okay, I think we'll go on to our next song now. We'll sing again. So this is going to be Michael Row the Boat Ashore. In the meantime, have a really good week, and I'll see you on our next lesson on Wednesday, week 2. Okay, take care. Bye, boys.